How's it going, people? CJ here. The other night I saw G.I. Joe Retaliation. And, yeah, it's actually a really good movie. Shockingly enough, I'm not even going to oversell it. It's actually a really good movie. Way better than the first movie. Even though I enjoyed it. Shockingly enough. So, if you're probably on the fence and you're reading this, watching this review, so just stick around and just hear me out on this. The whole premise of G.I. Joe Retaliation is pretty much, we're set up with, the whole premise of Duke, played by Channing Tatum. He is heading a new group of Joes now, where it's him, Robot, played by The Rock, Lady J, played by Adriana Palicki. If you've never seen her, she was the Wonder Woman in the Wonder Woman NBC failed pilot. Snake Eyes, played by Ray Park, and Flint, played by a new guy, DJ Katrona. Never heard of the guy, never seen him. Essentially, this is his new group of Joes that he's leading now and stuff, and they don't really reference the previous people from the other ones like Ripcord, Heavy Duty, Breaker, and Scarlet. So it kind of leaves you to interpretation. They probably just went off and did their own thing or whatever. But this is Duke's team. This is his new squad of Joes and stuff. And essentially, he's leading them on to disarm a nuclear warhead and such. The first nuclear warhead, and essentially they end up getting betrayed by the President of the United States, who at the end of the first movie was Zartan in disguise. He disguised himself as the President of the United States, and the President of the United States is played by Jonathan Pryce. And essentially he's betrayed, and Roadblock, Flint, and Lady J are essentially the only people that survives the massacre of all the Joes. And essentially they're out for vengeance against, President and Cobra Commander, who ends up coming back in this movie looking really good. Looking very much like his cartoon form, which is all we really wanted, because essentially Cobra Commander in the first movie was shit. Now, I'm just going to get this out the way, get the negatives out about this movie and stuff, because there's really two. And one of them is nitpicky, and the other is nitpicky / it kind of, it kind of hurts the movie a little bit. One of the big things with this movie, negatives about this movie, is the pacing. The pacing is very kind of it's kind of uneven, and you could tell in this movie that they cut out parts of this. They cut out scenes from this movie and stuff, and I think the scenes that they possibly cut out, because I remember seeing some of the scenes from the trailer, and I noticed that some of them weren't in the movie, and I think they might have been able to maybe help it out a bit, but again, the pacing problems doesn't really hurt the movie that much. I would say the other negatives is that out of all the characters that get introduced in this movie, Flint and Lady J are probably the two that kind of get the short end of the stick in terms of getting to know the characters. With Roadblock, you get his, friendship with Duke, and you notice that they obviously added scenes with Duke, with Channing Tatum, when they did the rewrites, because the backstory for this movie was that it was supposed to come out last year, and essentially there was a couple of factors that went into the mix. One, the fact that the studio wanted to convert it into 3D. Why, I don't know. Two, my theory is the fact that the movie was coming out between, this makes perfect sense from a business point of view, the movie was coming out in between Amazing Spider-Man and Dark Knight Rises, within about 2-3 weeks span in between those movies. And honestly, it was a smart business move, because I don't feel this movie would have made money in between these big summer blockbuster movies and such. It wouldn't have, and we wouldn't have got a third movie, and it would have been brushed off. So smart on the studio for that, but also at the same time though, they added in more scenes with Channing Tatum, and you could see, because I know most people give shit to Channing Tatum a lot and stuff. I'm one of those people like, he's alright, he does enough job, but you can tell that he actually acted, and you saw there was a camaraderie between him and The Rock in the movie and stuff, with their characters of Duke and Roadblock. They had this very big friendship and stuff, and you saw that, and it worked really well for the movie in terms of conveying Roadblock's character and stuff and who he was. you got more of a ninja subplot with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes and such, in that you figure out they kind of sort of retcon a little bit from the first movie, but they didn't really retcon it and stuff, so that's why I say it's kind of sort of. You kind of get a better understanding of who Storm Shadow is as a character and stuff, that it's more to him than just I hate Snake Eyes and stuff. Same, you know, Snake Eyes is Snake Eyes, you know. They did change his look up and stuff, so he doesn't have that bullshit mouthpiece from the first movie and stuff. He actually looks really good. Lady J, you get a sense that, you know, she's a very strong female and stuff. Has a little bit of daddy issues a little bit, but they don't really hit you over the head with it. It's just like, you know, she just wanted to make her dad proud, blah, 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 and stuff. And it goes back to what I was saying with Flint and Lady J. I mean, Flint and Jinx, you don't really get much of it. You get enough. Like with Flint, you realize he's a soldier that, you know, will disobey direct orders if it's for the greater good and stuff. And you know, most people are like, oh, Flint, why'd you disobey orders? But it benefits the team at the end of the day. So you get a little bit of what he's about and stuff, but nothing that's, you know, like too deep and stuff. Same with Jinx. You know, she's a young ninja who just wants to take over the world, and you know, Snake Eyes doesn't trust her and stuff, but you know, she works with them and they learn to appreciate each other and stuff. And you know, so you got enough, but you know, I really wish they kind of fleshed it out just a little bit, just a smidge. In terms of the other characters, like the bad guys, you got Ray Stevenson playing Firefly, who Ray Stevenson he tries to do a southern accent, and God bless him. I mean, he tried. I mean, it wasn't bad, but you know, I would rather him just do his Australian accent or whatever and call it a day and such. I mean, you know, well, keep his British accent, I should say. I don't know why I'm saying Australian. To keep his British accent, because he tried to do a southern accent. It worked to a point. Cobra Commander, this movie, I will say, matches in tone to what he sounds like in G.I. Joe Resolute, and I'll get more into that later when I talk about the plot line and such. He has a look like his cartoons with the shiny helmet and such, and he comes across as very threatening and very fearsome. So, and he makes it known that he's very threatening. You don't fuck with him. You didn't get that much in the first movie, but again, this Rise of Cobra, so even then though, you didn't get much of a threat. You get slight nods and such to some of the characters from the first movie, like Destro. Small cameo and such, you know, and this and that, and they kind of sort of keep it open for him to come back. Same with, you know, Baroness and such, even though they don't mention her and stuff. You get slight nods that, you know, maybe if they do a third movie, these characters will come back. Zartan. Okay, now, granted, majority of the movie it's Jonathan Bryce playing Zartan, but I will say he stole the movie for me as a very convincing bad guy, because, again, this is a president. They did the character very well. You know, he's enjoying this power trip. He's the president of the United States, and he's taking control of everything and such. And they do a good job of conveying that. You know, he comes across as a very convincing. He's having fun with the role. I like that. I like when you have bad guys that have fun with the role. And Jonathan Bryce playing Zartan, playing the president of the United States, it works. It makes it very good. I would say another casting in this movie that was a little weird was RZA plays Blind Master, and I will admit, seeing him play Blind Master, it threw me off a little bit. Not to say that I hated him as Blind Master, it throws you off a little bit and stuff, because it's like, I love RZA and stuff, and coming off Man with the Iron Fist, I thought he was shaky at best in Man with the Iron Fist, but I didn't feel he hurt the movie that much. With this movie, it's the same when he plays Blind Master. You know, I kind of I chuckled a bit, like, oh, RZA's the Blind Master. This is kind of funny. And a lot of other people in the audience kind of laughed at it, because it's just, I know some people kind of moan and go like, RZA Blind Master, but it's like, you're laughing at the hilarity of it and such, because it, you know, and like I said, it works for what it goes through, for what they're doing with it and such. But yeah, the action in this movie is very good. In comparison to the first Joe movie, I would say you have the action and it's there, and what you got is, in comparison to the first movie, I would say for the first movie, the action was very boisterous and big and such. And it's not to say that this isn't and stuff. The first movie, if anything, was like the G.I. Joe cartoon. Very much like the G.I. Joe cartoon. It didn't take itself seriously. It was very lighthearted and fun. Very nuanced in terms of how they were portraying the characters and such. So the first movie was very much like the cartoon. So you had a lot of big spectacle set pieces and action setups and stuff. And, you know, it worked for that movie for what they were going for and stuff, to show this big military organization of G.I. Joe and such. With this movie, they took it in terms of the Marvel Comics / IDW / G.I. Joe Resolute / G.I. Joe Renegades. And let me explain that. The comics, for the most part, while they had their big spectacle set pieces, it was very much kind of tonally very serious and very grounded in terms of these actions and stuff. So, again, the comics you're reading in and such, it's over the top, but not too over the top. It's very grounded. What I mean by... Actually, it's more along the lines with Resolute. Resolute, if you've never watched it, G.I. Joe Resolute, I recommend you watch it and stuff. Actually, it was pretty much a webisode series that turned out to be pretty much a 60-minute series about G.I. Joe and stuff. It was directed by Warren Ellis. And essentially, this movie, Retaliation, takes its tone from Resolute in the sense that you have a very serious Cobra Commander. You know, he has this big, you know, device, which this movie is also a callback again to the Weather Dominator from the cartoon and stuff in terms of, you know, how he implements the plot. Pretty much is kind of like the Weather Dominator plot in a sense, and also a little bit of the plot line with Resolute in a sense that, you know, Cobra Commander wants the collective global to bow to him and serve under him, or else he's going to destroy, you know, these people's countries and stuff. And if you saw the trailers for it, obviously, you know, he destroys London, you know, and you're like, oh shit, you know, this is very serious and stuff. So the movie does a good job showing you that Cobra is a threat. You know, whereas the first movie, you didn't get much. Wow, you know, he destroyed the Eiffel Tower. But it was nothing that was like, well, he destroyed the Eiffel Tower, but what's the threat in that? But this, it's like, oh shit, he destroyed London. This dude means business, you know. So, you know, it's grounded in that, and also Renegades with the little sub-device of, you know, the Joes being on the run and stuff, and they're being chased by a Cobra and all that stuff. So the movie is very serious in nature. It doesn't take itself seriously, you know. It has a couple of, you know, funny moments, like, you know, the president, you know, Zartan, you know, he's playing Angry Birds while everybody in the UN is freaking out, telling them to get rid of nukes and stuff. You know, he has everybody shoot off the nukes. Spoilers. And the movie takes itself very seriously as opposed to the first one. I know a lot of people will feel as though the finale, it's a lot of action and stuff. It's not the huge epic feel of Rise of Cobra where they're all like having this big all-out battle in, you know, the Arctic and stuff like that. But the movie really, it already established itself of what it's about. It's a very tonally serious movie. So you have this big action-packed finale, but the movie knows not to sit there and go too crazy with it. So, like I said, obviously, you know, you have Storm Shadow and all the ninja battling each other and stuff. You know, you have, you know, Flint and all of them having shootouts with the Cobra squads and stuff like that. So, again, the movie works. It really does work. I saw it in 3D. It worked for certain scenes. I would say possibly the one scene I know everybody's gonna freak it, that everybody has mentioned, is the, you know, Snake Eyes and, you know, Jinx fighting the ninjas on the mountainside and stuff like that. It's really good, and it's actually a throwback. That whole sequence from the time Jinx and Snake Eyes, you know, they pretty much climb up the mountain and stuff, all the way to the end of the set piece is pretty much a callback to G.I. Joe number 21, Marvel Comics run, Silent Interlude. Where there was pretty much no dialogue and the action kind of spoke for itself. And like I said, that scene was actually good. It was really good. So, yeah, I mean, if you see any movie this weekend, if you want to see any movie, I'm recommending G.I. Joe Retaliation. You'll love it. If you're a hardcore fan of G.I. Joe, you'll enjoy it. I think you will probably enjoy this more if you felt the first G.I. Joe movie wasn't really a G.I. Joe movie to you, you know. I mean, as much as I enjoy Rise of Cobra, again, it was a callback to cartoons. So if you were a fan of cartoons, Jurassic Cobra was up your alley with the craziness and stuff. But if you are a fan of just G.I. Joe in terms of the comics and even Resolute and Renegades and stuff, you'll love Retaliation. It's very worth it. I'm giving it an A- for me. And yeah, G.I. Joe Retaliation. Go see it. You'll enjoy it. And yeah, have fun with it.